gonna live by faith.
Welcome to Faith-Filled Moments, sharing faith to build your faith.
Gonna put my trust in you.
Well, hello and welcome to Faith-Filled Moments. I am Teresa Marie, your host, and you are listening to Faith-Filled Moments, a weekly broadcast where I get the privilege to interview a new guest each week who will share an account of faith in a defining moment in their life. My guests share personal accounts when they knew it was only their faith that brought them through. May you be encouraged as you hear real accounts from real people who experience God's wondrous works at crucial moments in their life. I want to encourage you today as we begin the program. I had read a little ditty on the internet quite a while ago, and I remember it said that life, let me get it right. It said that life needs more slow dances in the kitchen. Now, let me say that again. Life needs more slow dances in the kitchen. I want to remind you that God gave us life with the intention for us to live it, to have abundant life. Life is not just meant to be endured or tolerated, although it includes working and sleeping and eating and loving and hurting and laughing. It even includes dancing. I dare you to delight in the Lord no matter what season you find yourself in. We all know our journey is full of ups and downs and twists and turns. And as we begin to change seasons, go ahead and shuffle in those soon to be piles of leaves, tap your boots in the impending snow of winter, and dance. Dance in every season. Be grateful that you are alive and loved by the one who created you. And I'm telling you, Jesus will get you dancing. So be encouraged today. Turn up the music and go ahead and dance in your kitchen. Listen, today I get the privilege to welcome to the program none other than Chris Allen Schrecengost. Hello, Chris.
Hi,
How are you doing?
I'm doing great.
It
Thanks.
is a privilege to have you as my guest today. Chris Allen Schrecengost, you were born in Cleveland, Ohio. You grew up in the inner city of Cleveland. You are a father, a brother, a son, and you are a retired truck driver by profession, and you are an awesome, gifted musician. But, your life wasn't always easy. Although you learned to play the guitar at 6 years old and began playing with your father and your uncles, the environment really wasn't a good influence, to put it mildly. Begin your journey in telling your story of your defining moment in your life.
Well, like you said, my uncles would come over and they would sing and they would play guitar, and that's how I started to learn. But they would drink, and that was a common occurrence at our house. Um, and that's where I got started. Playing the guitar and my music. And then, I guess I started drinking in my early teens. And and that just progressed on to adulthood, till I just was out of control with the drinking. And I was up to a fifth of whiskey and a case of beer a day. By the
What?
time I was 30 years old.
A case of beer and a fifth of whiskey a day,
A day. Yeah.
every single day. Was there, so basically for a length of time, you weren't ever sober. You were drunk 24/7, it sounds like, or pretty
Oh,
close to it.
yeah. Actually, the last drunk that I was on before going into treatment, I drank like 60 bottles of booze.
Mm.
One after I was literally drunk for a month and a half.
It's a miracle, like, you even survived that. No alcohol poisoning, no, I mean, no accidents, you have no DUIs, is that correct?
None. No.
I don't know. I don't even know how that's possible. Thank God. And no one else was injured either. But here you are. You started on this road. Alcohol kind of a generational thing in your family? Everybody
Ab-
drank?
Absolutely.
And you mentioned that you started as a young teen, so I'm assuming guests gave you alcohol, or other adults gave you alcohol, people who were guests at your home, or your uncles or your dad even? It didn't matter how old you were?
No, that's not true. But I found ways to sneak it and,
Okay.
take it. It's just what we did.
So it wasn't necessarily that the family was giving it to you, although they were drinking, you as a young teen, you just went and got your own, which was the easy thing to do back then, right?
Oh,
So
yeah,
fa
absolutely.
fast forward, you're pushing 30 years old, and, uh, it's out of control, as you said. Now, all that time, though, you're working, right? You're what would be called what? A functional drinker?
At at the early part of my decline, I mean, I was driving a semi. I would have a case of beer and a fifth of whiskey back in the sleeper, and I'd be driving
Oh my
from
goodness.
Chicago to New Jersey and never remember it.
Never remember how you even got there. Oh my. And
Yeah.
driving, uh, how many pounds is a semi? Like, it's its own
Well,
weapon, right? I mean,
oh yeah. I mean, you can pull up to 80,000 pounds with
oh my,
everything.
and have no recollection. So you get to this place, you're drinking, you're married at this time, correct?
I was.
And what leads you to decide, "I don't wanna drink anymore"? I mean, you're married, did you have a child by then?
Oh, yes. Yeah, absolutely. I had my daughter by then. But what happens is, like they say in AA, you get sick and tired of being sick and tired. So, and I was at my utmost worst. I wasn't working at that time. So you have a lot of time to drink. So, and then I just spiraled down out of control to where something had to happen. I mean, my sister and my wife at the time were trying to uh, help me go through withdrawals so I could straighten up, and it just wasn't working. I didn't want to go into some institution. I didn't know what to expect. I didn't want to be locked up, and that's the last thing I wanted. And my sister actually was sleeping on the floor in front of the door to prevent me from going out and getting more.
Oh
So
my.
I thank God for her. And but they were trying to wean me off of it. Like I said, that last drunk, I was drunk for like a month and a half. Fall down, stumbling drunk for a month and a half.
And you have some recollection of that, but you got to that point where they hid the booze, I mean, you had mentioned before about there was stuff in the basement, it was gone, right? There was
Right.
no access within the house, and they weren't gonna let you leave. Um, Tell our listeners, who haven't really experienced that, there's people listening who are addicts of many different things, but in going through withdrawal, it's a painful experience, is that correct?
Yes, it is. It's very not so much painful, but it's just the desires there, and you're craving it, and it's not a fun process at all.
And you decided to go ahead and you were gonna go into rehab, is that right? You agreed to it, or reluctantly agreed to it?
Reluctantly, I did. I told them, because I was feeling so sick and nauseous and uh, had the shakes and everything. And I told them, I says, if you could find me somewhere to go where they can take these feelings from me, these willies or whatever you want to call it, I says, I'll go. And boy, they
Wow.
were just dialing the phone trying to find a place for me. And they finally did. And I went into treatment.
You went into treatment. So, at that point, you're sober when you got into treatment, is that correct?
No, I was going through withdrawals
You were
then
still
at that
going through
point.
withdrawal. Okay. Um,
Detox, they call it detox. I was going through
yes.
detox.
How many days did that take?
That was about 3 days of, feeding. They give you something. I don't know what they gave me to calm my nerves and stuff.
Okay. So you're there, you work the program. What was going on back home at that point?
Well, my wife was actually pregnant at the time. So, and she went into labor. So they had allowed me to leave to go see my son born. And so, which I did. And then I had to go back and finish out my term. I was in there for like 30 days.
Okay. So just a 30-day program back then. But and that's unheard of to let you out. And they let you out to see the birth of your son, which was an amazing experience, I know. And you use that day as your sobriety. Is that correct?
Absolutely. When you leave a protected area, uh, then that starts your sobriety. So, yeah, they let me out. So I used my son's birthday as my sobriety date.
Beautiful. And you had to go back and finish out the program and work the program. Tell our listeners the rest of your journey.
Well, when I had got out of treatment, the beer signs and bar commercials, they still bothered me. And I remember I said a prayer and I asked God to remove that desire. So, and I knew the second that those words left my lips, that prayer was answered. So, and that's really my defining moment right there. And I knew that, like I said, my prayer was answered. And I remember in prayer saying, thank you. And now what can I do? And I heard a voice tell me to get my family in church.
Wow. And you were a believer then, but you hadn't been actively going to church, and you obeyed that voice, right?
I did.
You had a new son, a 4 or 5 year old daughter, and your wife, and you guys went to church, and your life was transformed, right? What happened?
It was. We started going to church, and I mean, I had gone to when I first got out, starting to go to AA meetings and everything else. And I thank God for AA. It's a wonderful program for people, and but I knew that I just wanted, my higher power. I give it to God. And
Yes.
so from that point on, just going to church and getting involved, and I got on the worship team at church for a while, and there was a motorcycle ministry I got involved with, and so my life really just went
Did a
up from there.
180.
Yeah,
180, right?
oh,
A
yeah,
180.
absolutely.
Your whole family, you were baptized at the church. I mean, it was a new beginning, wasn't it?
It really was.
It really was, and it not that it was an easy road. You experienced some difficulties, but you were sober, and it was the first time in most of your life, right?
Yes, it really was.
And your life changed. What changes happened once you let go of drinking? What was the natural effects of that? Even we know spiritually, you gave your life to the Lord. You're pursuing relationship with Him. You're active in ministry. But what was the changes that can be directly connected to giving up drinking? What happened in your life?
Well, you get clear headed, the
Hmm.
fog leaves. Um, you stop that what they call stinking thinking,
Yes.
and you get healthier. You feel healthier, and you don't want to go back to that old way.
What
You
about
know.
all the money you used to spend on drinking, though? What ended up happening? Just
Oh, that
those
was like
simple
a
things,
raise and pay.
right?
I mean, it really was. So
But giving up that addiction opened doors to other things, right? New home, buying a home, right?
yeah, I was able to actually buy my first car because I just drove clunkers
Yeah.
my whole life. Even as a married and a father, the cars I drove were just real clunkers, and
Oopsies.
you know, so many benefits Yeah, I could not believe that just by stopping that liquid in that bottle prevented so many good things in life. It was amazing.
Wow. Say that again, Chris, because there's people struggling today. I mean, their addiction may not be alcohol, it may be drugs. There's addictions come in all forms, but letting go of that hold, I mean, change your whole perspective on life, didn't it?
Yeah, I mean, it's a bondage. It is definitely a
Mhm.
bondage. And once you break that chain, uh, it's amazing that your life changes for the better. And then your mind changes to where you don't want to go back to the old ways because you see the benefits of the way life is now. I wouldn't change that for the world.
Wouldn't go back. Now, temptations still come in life. You're being so transparent with our listeners. Like I said, even after going to church, accepting the Lord, and you know, whom the Son has set free is free indeed. I mean, your mind was transformed, um, converted, but you experienced some difficult things in your life even after that.
Yes, I end up losing two brothers to alcoholism, cirrhosis of the liver. Even after,
Wow.
I got clean, trying to talk to them didn't work. I would hear, well, that might work for you, but it does work. And so even losing my mother at that time when I was, sober, I
Yes.
lost two brothers uh, while I was sober, and my mother.
Ever think about going and picking up a drink just to calm down during that
No,
period?
no, because I know that if I would do that, it would only make things so much worse.
Right. So you
So
recognize the benefit of your sobriety. Um, I mean, God helped you to stay sober. I mean, there's no denying
absolutely,
that, and He answered that initial prayer so profoundly. I mean, there's some
absolutely.
people that maybe they cried out and said a prayer also, Chris, and it doesn't seem like God answered theirs the way He answered yours. What advice would you give to them? How would you encourage them that they too can be free from the bondage?
Well, I think that you just have to want to change your life and want something better than what you have. And that old way, it just it just doesn't work. And it's just hurtful. And life is so much better when you do go on and you make your mind up and you put that one foot in front of the other one
Absolutely.
for a better life, and you will have it.
And if it can happen for you and God can be that intricate part, can He do it for anybody?
Absolutely.
He's no respecter
Absolutely.
of persons, right? And it
No,
doesn't mean that the road's always gonna be easy. You've experienced great loss in your life, and yet you never chose to go back and pick up a bottle again.
absolutely.
Um, do the signs still bother you? Is the temptation still strong, or is there you're, 35 plus years now of sober. Um, are there any triggers left? Tell our listeners if there's things like that that you still combat.
No, no, not really. I just trust God that He'll see me through,
Yes.
and I trust in that. And I have to tell you that you know I had one of the losses that no, but was probably the hardest for anybody, and that's losing my own son. And that was the hardest day of my life. But I never
Absolutely.
drank, and I just know that even if I would have, and everybody probably would have understood, even if I did, but it just wouldn't have made anything better. It would have made things so much more worse. So,
Yeah.
but
Wow.
yeah, and this year on his birthday, it will be 37 years of
Amazing.
sobriety.
Amazing. Amazing, amazing. And if you can get through that and not pick up the bottle, man, God's been with you all along, hasn't he? Um, and like you said, no one should ever have to experience that great a loss. But in talking to other people who have experienced great loss and who are still battling addiction, um, what would your final words to them be to encourage them that there's a better way? There's life and life more abundant, you know?
Well, there is absolutely, but it doesn't have to be that heavy of a happening in somebody's life. It could be just a fender bender or whatever. That could be somebody's trigger. We deal with ups and downs on a daily basis. I mean,
Yes.
life is hills and valleys.
Yes.
So it's appreciating life when you're up on the hill and dealing with things when you're down in the valley. But we don't have to do it alone. And
No.
there's people out there and that are helpful, and organizations, and to where people can get help. And to have God on your side, there's no better help.
No better help. Um, I appreciate you so much being so transparent with your defining moment. Just that moment when you ask God, take this desire from me. It was a prayer of faith. It was stepping out, and you knew without a shadow of doubt he answered that prayer at that very, very moment. And you heard that
Absolutely.
voice leading in his direction. The word of God tells us that he will direct our paths. If we acknowledge him in all our ways, he will direct our paths. He directed your path that day, and he enabled you to overcome. Final words as we wrap up today's program.
Believe in God, and trust in him. And if you're having a problem, seek help. There's help out there or even get a hold of me. I'll make myself open, and just seek help.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Wow. Powerful, powerful. I thank you so much for sharing your defining moment. And I love you, and I'll see you later.
Okay, I love you
All right.
too.
I don't tell that to every one of my guests, but I'll talk to you later. Thank you. Thank you so much. And that wraps up today's program of Faith Filled Moments. I want to encourage you that you would continue to speak and praise God, speaking of all his wondrous works, that you would never, ever forget that God loves you and there is nothing that you can do about that. Have a blessed rest of the week.
Faith Filled Moments is an outreach of Teresa Marie Ministries. If you would like to be a guest or need further information, check us out on Facebook, Faith Filled Moments, or Teresa Marie Ministries, P.O. Box 923, Marion, Ohio 43302.